One of the first things President Trump did in office was to sign an executive order on January 25th to begin building the border wall. This week, he again promised that the wall will get built. But a new wall between the U.S. and Mexico remains both myth and metaphor because, to date, there's no funding to pay for it. We went down to the border between Texas and Mexico, a place where they've always lived without a border wall, and only the Rio Grande River separates two countries, to hear how they feel.
As you can see, it wasn't a big place.
Mauricio Vidaury's family history is situated on 1,300 raw acres of Texas borderland, part of a Spanish land grant even before there was a United States of America.
In this room, in this house, my father was born and raised.
The proximity to Mexico means illegal immigrants and drug dealers are a constant worry. This is your house that you found?
My sister's house. It was my father's house. They'll break into the window and they'll try to use it as a stash house, either for illegal immigrants or for the dope runners.
As much as he supports tough border security, Vidaury is against a physical border wall, which he says wouldn't be built on the actual border, the middle of the Rio Grande River, but somewhere on the U.S. side, on his property.
You build the wall, this cuts off, and they get the water. We no longer get the water. They get the water.
Mexico.
Yes.
A wall could also cut through his hay fields.
The wall can be built right here, right? And anything past this will be no man's land.
An even bigger issue, a border wall could go straight through the family cemetery. Thousands of border property owners like Vidaury are waiting to hear what's coming.
I would say about a year ago, the alarm bells started going off.
Build the wall! Build the wall!
In terms of traffic, Vidaury's land might seem like the right place for President Trump's wall. It's in the so-called Laredo sector of Texas, home to the busiest commercial port in the U.S. It's a bustling entry point for foot traffic from Mexico, both the legal kind over the gateway to America's International Bridge and the illegal kind. A Border Patrol river team takes us on an airboat, and we see that the river may be a natural barrier between the U.S. and Mexico. But here, it's not hard to cross. So what makes this such an active area?
Okay, so there's a number of things that make this area particularly attractive to the criminal element. It's not too deep. At some places, the river's just, up to your knees, maybe your waist.
Scott Good heads Border Patrol in the Laredo sector. A lot of good people cross the border to come and work or find a better life. But a lot of them aren't good. A lot of them are criminal elements, and they pose a great danger.
Yeah, absolutely. Smugglers don't care at all about human life. They're very callous. There's so many just horrific things that can come from it, to include rape, slavery, those kinds of things.
He says a physical wall would help.
Infrastructure like a wall would be valuable to us, as well as other things like the technology to be able to see in this dense brush.
You can see how, if you're unfamiliar with an area in general, how difficult it would be to navigate through any of this, even at night,
Along the banks of the Rio Grande, Webb County Sheriff's Deputy Robert Castillo shows us countless pathways routinely used for criminal traffic. Is this a path?
It is what it is. It is a trail.
What are the feelings here on the border about whether there should be an open border or whether there should be strict border enforcement?
It should be strict because
the local sheriff, Martin Cuellar, says there's a lot of community support for tough border enforcement.
Mexico have cartels that are operating just across the border. And when they're having trouble and they're fighting either other cartels or the Mexican government, the military, the Marines, when they have problems, guess what they do? They come across for safe haven. So we can't say we want an open border. My job is to protect this community, and I'm going to do everything possible to do that.
But like many locals, the sheriff doesn't want a physical wall.
I think a smart wall, with drones and sensors and high-tech cameras and people to respond to those areas will be the solution to this.
The Webb County Sheriff's Department has already begun deploying a high-tech alternative to a wall called Border Smart. This is the first command center bringing in live images from 2 high-resolution solar-powered cameras.
You have to remember that
They're seeking $90 million in federal tax money to blanket 360 miles of border in 7 counties with cameras and response teams over 5 years. Federico Garza is helping lead the effort.
By the time that somebody crosses that border and gets into our field of operation, we will discover him day and night. And he won't know what hit him until he gets on the highway.
Border Smart might line up with President Trump's notion that half the border, 1,000 miles, can be protected by technology instead of a wall. In July, he told reporters off camera on Air Force One, it's a 2,000-mile border, but you don't need 2,000 miles of wall because you have a lot of natural barriers. The media reported Trump had suddenly scaled back his wall, and they called it a radical departure. But he'd actually said the same thing a year and a half earlier, that of 2,000 miles of border, only half needs a wall or fence.
And of the 2,000, we don't need 2,000. We need 1,000 because we have natural barriers, et cetera, et cetera.
In fact, candidate Trump began talking about less wall and more technology on this visit to Laredo in July of 2015.
The mayor has done a fantastic job, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Trump.
That's Laredo Mayor Pete Sines.
He asked about how I felt about the wall, and I told him with all due respect that it was offensive to Mexico. He listened. He did give an interview at the end basically saying that possibly maybe areas with natural barriers like the river possibly may not take a wall or conducive to having a wall. My understanding is no wall, no fence, no barrier will be built in the Laredo City area.
And that's how you'd rather have it?
Oh yes, by all means.
The Dowry is in the next county over, waiting for word. He wants to stop the illegal traffic on his ranch, but save the family homestead.
We see my family's blood, sweat, and tears in those stones and in this land. And that's what we have been passed on to protect and to preserve. To have a wall, just come in here and be built, you're not respecting what was given to us, granted to us.
Even without full funding, the administration is moving forward. 2 weeks ago, the government selected 4 contractors to start building prototype sections of a new border wall. This test phase could be complete by the end of the year.